want the session to be super interactive, and I want to see you guys as well.
Oh, sure. Sure, we can have that.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, can you see me? I think my camera is messed up.
Okay, so I'll start off with a small introduction part for all of us and for everybody who joined a little later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a very good evening to everybody here. I am really happy to see the number of people who joined for the session today. I am Rida Malik, a Microsoft Learn student ambassador, the creative head of MSS, and co founder of Girls Code. I welcome you to an amazing session by Rida Fatima.
Oh, hello,
Thank you
everyone.
for that introduction.
No, we have a better introduction lined up. We just wanted to. So, hi guys. I'm Ananya Vedala, a Microsoft student partner as well, and just like Rida, I am the co-founder of Girls Code 2, and we're both really looking forward to a lot of insights from this session. So now we'd like to introduce you properly. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So Rida has been a student at MJ and graduated in the year 2019. She is the reason that MSS exists today and the whole family is here. She has inspired many to follow, including myself. I have always made this very obvious, and I've said this to you as well, as to how much I look up to you, and you've inspired me to pursue such amazing things. So, thank you so much for that. She's currently pursuing a master's in the US and is an incoming software engineer at Salesforce in Silicon Valley. She's here with us today to talk about her experience and answer the questions that you guys have sent in. So I request you to talk a little bit about yourself. And it would be great if you could tell us how your quarantine has been and how you've kept yourself busy.
Okay. Hi. Thank you for the introduction, you guys. When it's really funny that it's Rida. I'm addressing Rida and Rida. Um, but yeah, it's been great, I guess. I did my internship in quarantine. Was really fun, but also really weird because I got to meet these bunch of people, um, but I didn't really get to meet them. Our relationship was just online, if you know what I mean. And
Mm.
but it was super fun. I got to learn a lot over this quarantine. I took the opportunity to dress up today after I don't know 4 months.
Um, Also,
And
yeah. Sorry, go
mm-hmm.
ahead. No, go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
I just wanted to tell the audience that if you guys can switch on your cameras, you can do so. There's something wrong with my camera, but if anyone else is fine with switching it on, it'll be really interactive. It'll be really great if you could switch on
Yeah,
your cameras. And yeah, that's what I wanted to
I
say.
want to see you guys too. Come on.
I don't know. There's something seems to be
Okay,
wrong with my
that's
camera.
that's totally okay. I want the session to be really interactive. I don't want me speaking all the time. I just want you to have a conversation with me and feel free to ask me anything. Like, what do you like to eat? Anything. That's fine. Yeah, I'm Rida Fatima. I graduated in from MJ from CSC in 2019. Um, then I came here for my master's. I study in University of Florida, and I'm about to graduate next year. And inshallah, after that, I'll be joining Salesforce in California next year. So yeah, I'll be moving from East Coast to West Coast. Yeah, so that's fun.
Yeah, it seems like you have it all planned out. We all hope to be like that someday.
hopefully, I feel blessed to be in a position like this, especially during this time where things are quite uncertain. And I've been quite fortunate, I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah, with people losing their jobs, it makes a lot of sense that you
Yeah.
have it stable, so it's great. So coming to the next question that we have lined up, this is something that we're all very curious to know about. Who is your inspiration, and like who is that one person you look up to, or the one thing that drives you to do better every single day?
Okay. So, hmm. Okay, I'll tell you guys a story. It's very cliche. I don't know if you guys will resonate with this, but when I was growing up, so I was someone who had computer science in her school. So my school taught me computer science, and in fifth grade, we had it from first grade. In fifth grade, when I had topped the class the fifth year for that subject, not everything. Come on. My father was like, she's really smart in computer science, and I'm gonna send her to Silicon Valley. And at that time, I had no idea what Silicon Valley was, to be honest. And then he explained to me what it was and why I should have been there. And Alhamdulillah, I think 15 years down the lane, I'm somewhere really close to getting that. But the thing is, now I have no other ambition. I'm like, oh, now what do I do? Now I'm here. So, so hopefully, I'll probably see where life takes me after this.
Yeah.
So that's just a really personal thing because it comes from your parents, and it's not like it was their dream. It's because they saw my strengths and they decided to channel me towards this. So yeah, that's something that really drives me because for me that was always in the back of my head that someday I'll work in Silicon Valley. Everyone who knows me, I've always mentioned to this. I'm always mentioned to them that this is something that I want to do, and then from there I don't know what I'll do.
Well, it was nice to hear the support that you got, and I think it's almost the same for all of us, that our parents have
Mm-hmm.
somewhat been a driving force in what we dream or aspire to be, and we somewhat
Mm-hmm.
collect from who they are as to what we want to be as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really nice to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is something that I'm taking from your experience, and also that a lot of
Mm-hmm.
female students go through. The
Mm-hmm.
problems that you faced at college, establishing a club, or the fact that generally it happens that female students are overlooked. This is either intentional or otherwise. So how do you suggest that we deal with it, and how did you tackle that?
Oh my God. I cannot stress this enough, but sexism is real. But we're all going to face it at some point in our life. But I've faced it at every point in my life. I think even I faced it from people I didn't expect it from, and I find it really hard. Like initially when I was getting become like starting a club of my own, a lot of my co oh hi Sohail. A lot of my friends turned against me and they were like, dude, you have no idea how hard it is to be a founder. Wait, what's it called again? The chief officer. What's that post called again? Sorry.
CEO or CTO, is that what you're looking for?
No. The chief representative of the club. So I don't remember
Yeah,
what the
the
word was.
CC abbreviation.
Oh
This is
yeah,
from which
the
I only.
CC. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so the CC, it's really hard. Apparently, it was really hard for a girl to be a CC. which I don't know who made the rules. Um, and so they were like, no, there's a lot of work around it and stuff, and I don't think you should look forward to becoming a CC. I think you should make the club and hand it over to a boy for like so that he can do all your work and stuff. And I was like, that's not right, guys. I don't know why you're behaving like this just because I said like I want to start a club. And eventually from there I went to working at a company, and this is something that I've had in this experience really like shook me up because my mentor had told me this. When my mentor, when I proved to my mentor that I can actually code and do work, which he could not believe, by the way, because I was a girl. He said something on the terms of, um, okay, sorry, sorry, I just got distracted. I just see Sohaib on my screen.
Yeah, probably because I think she stopped sharing for some reason. I think she must be having some sort of issues. Yeah.
No problem, sorry. So my mentor said something on the lines of people take girls like you into our company only so that boys can feel motivated to come to the company every day. And I was really offended because he was like, so you didn't come here because they saw potential in you. You didn't come here because you proved something on in the interview. You didn't come here for any of those reasons. You came here just because they thought that having you in this company would encourage everyone else to come every day. And I was like, what's wrong with you? And those kind of sexist comments are unfortunately, very common. And
So do you think that, all these companies are having like a lot of like opportunities for girls now, and there's a lot of backlash. People are like, this isn't fair, and people are just getting in without knowing things, and guys are like, losing out on an opportunity. Do you think it's justified? Like, do you think that makes sense to have such opportunities?
see, firstly, there's a reason why we're being given a preference is because there's no equality in technology.
Right.
Unfortunately, the ratio between girls and boys is very large at this point. And so at that point, they really want to encourage us because girls have to face a lot more to succeed. Because honestly, when I was coming to masters, my parents were so scared because they were sending a girl alone. I had no experience of living on my own. I had no worldly knowledge. Um, in their opinion, they were like, I don't know how she's going to manage because she has no idea how to live. She's never been to the grocery store on her own. How is she going to go do groceries for like the rest of you know, stay for masters and stuff? So yeah, my parents had to consider a lot of things. They were looking for places where I had relatives. Um, they were considering sending me to some place that they called safe and stuff. But I don't think that's the same for boys because when my brother went, my mother was not worried about where he's going to stay. She's like, he's a boy, he'll manage. He has no, like, I've managed much better than he has, just by the way. But yeah, there's always a safety concern with girls. And also, I don't know if you girls can resonate with me, but a lot of people in Hyderabad have a backlash for girls who go and live abroad because they're scared that they'll go insane and they'll start doing all kinds of drugs and alcohol. I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's always this taboo associated with those kind of things. And so I am incredibly fortunate that my parents took a step and they were like, no, it's okay. They went against the rest of my family and said, no, it's okay, we'll send her. And that takes a lot of courage. And yeah,
Absolutely. That is something that is very obviously stated in front of even a gathering, which is really funny. Even when we are sitting and stating our dreams, and they, so very openly tell how girls who do pursue this are looked down upon for certain reasons that they make up in their own minds. But sometimes it's sort of insulting, but very discouraging as well, to for them to just sweep what we call our dreams just so very easily.
hmm in fact, I don't know how many of you have actually gone for arranged marriages, or actually have heard arranged marriages issues. Um, the thing is, now I'm close to graduating, and so my parents are looking for people. It's very unfortunate, but so some of the things that I get to hear is, बच्ची अकेले 1 साल के लिए रही. We don't know what all she's done, and I get to hear a lot of like sexist things, like, oh, she's too educated, and those kind of things. Like, they really hurt your self-esteem and like self-confidence. Like, I worked really hard to be here, and how can that be a bad thing?
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah. So with all of this background that you have and like all of this confidence busting that had happened, what made you decide that, you know what, okay, I'll just go abroad and do MS? Because I'm pretty sure there were opportunities for you here as well. You could have worked, but what made you think that I should go there and, do that?
I took a gamble. Honestly, I took a very, very big gamble. So I had been offered a job in Hyderabad from Google just a month before I left, and they were offering me a really good package. They were offering, it was almost too good to be true. And then the thing is, my visa had been processed, um, and my all my things for my masters was done. So I think a month that I had to decide whether I want to go or I want to stay. And I don't know why, it was just a gut feeling that I just said, my mom said, if they took you here and took you now, they'll take you there and they'll take you then. And so she was like, it's okay. If you stay here in India, you'll be stuck for another 3 years, and um, you'll be too old to do masters, which also doesn't make sense. But she was like, no, you'll be here, and then I know you won't go back to studying, so just finish it off. So that's kind of what I did.
As a matter of fact, I've also been told this, that you'll be too old to do masters if you don't do it right away. I don't understand that. I probably will never understand it either.
Yeah, I don't get it, but I think what they mean is, once you get accustomed to working, it gets really hard for you to go back into studying, which uh, I think has a valid point, because I would find it very hard to come back into the studying phase if I had worked for a year or two.
But there's an argument to this wherein they say that, if you work, you understand how things work and you understand what you like to do. So then you can pursue
Mhm.
master that as well. So what are you?
Um, about that, it really depends on where you're working. It really has to be a very, very good place that you're working. And your work should, the thing is, with freshers in India, you don't get a lot of good work. Unless you prove yourself, you don't get to work on like good projects and things like that. So, turns out in the end, you just learn a lot of the peripherals. You don't get to do the actual work. And so, in my opinion, that's that's not relevant, since you want to that work experience doesn't feel very relevant. However, I've heard a lot of people who've had at least 4 or 5 years of experience, and they come down to be their experience is a little different because they've been working for more than 4 or 5 years. But if you're working for a year or two, you're not going to learn anything really special or like some, because companies do this. When you're a fresher, they start giving you projects that are very peripheral, and so in case you make a mistake with the project, they won't have an issue with it. So only once you prove yourself, that's when they'll actually start giving you real work.
So you suggest that it's better to just go off and finish your masters, and you might just get into a company at a better position. Is that?
In my opinion, yes. I would much rather have you come here unless you decide to work for 3 to 4 years.
Also, there's
then it makes sense.
Yeah, and there's also this taboo that if you don't do your MS, then you don't go up the ladder once you start working. Is that true? In the company, is it necessary to do an MS, or you can just still work?
Honestly, I think you can just build yourself up. There's no such thing that you cannot. Masters doesn't give you anything. Masters won't equip you with anything that your undergrad has already not equipped you with. Sorry.
And what are your thoughts on community events? Like, you've been a Microsoft Student Partner as well. So what have you gained from that, and how has it helped you as an individual?
I had a lot of insight. I love doing community events because I believe that if you don't go and encourage or share knowledge with people who you been with or been around or have some kind of resonance with, then who will? Like, why will someone else be obligated to do that? But I always look back, and I think Sohaib and Reza can tell you this, but I always give them muft ka gyan for no reason. It's only because I feel obligated to go back to my community and let them know things that I've learned from my experience, so that they can make an informed decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what communities are also for. You get to learn, meet so many people, so many things. You grow as an individual, basically.
Yeah, and I've learned so much. I've learned so much that I always believe that when you share knowledge, it really multiplies. Even you get to learn a lot because you get to hear a different perspective, and it's a really nice experience, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's actually very true. I know we had a question in between, actually. I think we missed it. Someone had asked how you go about your technical interviews. So maybe you can.
How do I
go about your technical interviews? How you went about
it?
Maybe.
Okay, guys. You know how they say that interviewers can, they'll ask you a certain set of questions, and let's practice these from HackerRank, and they'll ask you these questions. No, interviewers can ask you anything. Okay, usually for my interview, they asked me a really hard graph question, and honestly, I had just come out of MJ at that point, and I don't think I had a very strong base in graphs at that point. But the thing is, I really worked hard. There's this book, I don't know if you guys know, it's called Cracking the Coding Interview. I hope you all are aware of that book and have actually gone through it, because that book is really good. And it's only because of that book that I cracked my my technical interview. But the thing is, sometimes it doesn't even depend on your technical, on how you answer your technical question. Sometimes they might even reject you based on your confidence, your body language, a lot of other things. I'll give you an example of an interview where I was rejected and for an interview that I was selected for. Firstly, the all the interviews that I got selected for were interviews that I didn't like, for jobs I didn't want or had no expectations from. Like I was like, when I was giving Google's interview, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to get this. So this is just a practice round. So that really gives you a lot of confidence when you don't have anything, when you're not like, when your life doesn't depend on it, basically. Yeah, you seem to do much better. They look at your confidence. They look at the way you present yourself. They ask you a lot of trick questions because they want to see if you actually stick to your answer or not, or if you change accordingly. Sometimes you might have an issue. Always communicate with your recruiter because be frank. Just say like, if you don't get the question, ask him. If you want a hint, ask him. Keep engaging him in your thoughts. Tell him what your thought process is and which direction you're going into. That's the only way he'll know what you're thinking, and he can give you a hint or so. Or he it's really important. If you're quiet and you try to solve it and you can't solve it, that tells them that you don't have uh, you don't like sharing your thoughts, and so that's something they don't want. So these are things that are really important.
Yeah, I think Rida's having like a lot of technical issues. I'm not sure if she's here.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I'm here now, but I've been
No.
hopping on and off because of the Wi-Fi. Okay, so everything that you said, I've been listing it down so I can share it with those who couldn't join us today. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think all of those points are something that you don't really see in typical LinkedIn posts as to how you should do an interview. So we'll definitely be sharing that. Thank you for that.
So my experience is completely from my Indian experiences of interviews, because the way you do interviews here is a lot different from the way you do it in India.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So moving on to the next question. Applying to masters in a different country, like we've discussed, can be very daunting. So what advice do you have for students to keep in mind during the application process? Not the obvious ones, but something that comes from your experience.
Guys, if you're not hardworking, don't do it. Just don't do it. You have to be. Okay. I'm gonna be really frank. Um, this is the worst year of my life. Um, you don't have your parents. It's really hard. There's time difference. You can't call your friends. You have nobody here. You have to do everything on your own. Sometimes you have a lot of issues. Sorry. Sometimes you have a lot of issues regarding a place to stay, what food to eat, where to get it from. You have to take buses. And apart from all that, the studies is not like the studies we did in undergrad. Like they make you actually sit, like you will have to sit down on nights. There are days I haven't eaten because I've had assignments due, and a deadline is a deadline. And so you don't get to you don't get to eat if you don't cook. A, you don't get to eat if you forget to get groceries. B, you need good roommates. If you mess up on good roommates, your life will become hell, because like there's a certain way. The place you go can be really expensive, or you know it's a lot of people have this thing that, oh, main wahan jaake I'll do part time and I'll survive and stuff. No, you cannot. The coursework is so hard that by the time you decide to do like if you start to do part time, you'll have to say bye bye to your grades. So I would recommend to come. A, if you can afford to. And it's very unfortunate because I couldn't afford to. I honestly could not afford to. My parents had to put in their entire life savings to send me here. And so, like, for me, it was really hard, and the experience was really bad because I had to focus on my studies, and there was no way I could sit down and go for another job and like manage my studies and stuff. I couldn't. So the process is really, really hard once you get here. If you cannot afford it, you should figure out your finances, see if you can get a bank loan. You have to get all of that process, and you have to. I'm not discouraging people, but I'm telling you that this is a real problem that a lot of people think that they'll get TA, RA, scholarships. Don't do that. It's very risky. And if you cannot pay your fees, you will lose status, you will lose your current, you will lose everything, and then you will go back home with a debt of, I don't know, 16, 17 lakhs. It's just not worth it. Finances is very important for you to plan out. Second thing is choose your roommates wisely. Third thing is you have to leave all your luxuries behind. When I say this, I really mean it because there'll be days where you'll be thinking, oh, this is $1. Should I buy it? Do I really need it? Yeah, happens. I know friends who've not had a mattress for an entire year because they're like, why should I invest $200? It's okay, I can just eat food in that much. I know people who cannot, who've had to live very frugally, not because of any other reason, but because they didn't plan their finances really well. They only saw the tuition, but they didn't cover living. So take all of these into account. A second point is do not go to a university just because it's cheap. Do not. Don't do that because you'll find it very hard getting jobs there. You have to choose a good university, even if it's expensive. Because in the long run, when you get the job, you can pay off all of those things. You can easily pay off your loans. In the first month of your job, on the signing bonus, you can pay off your entire loan. However, if you take a bad college just because it's cheap, it will be very, very hard for you to get into a good company. Um, and so it will be very hard for you to live in this country unless you find some other way. But I do not recommend that way. And I know this is a common trend in Hyderabad, in MJ at least, that everyone goes to this school called Northern Illinois something University in Chicago. Um, Trust me, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. Just take a good school. Actually, you work hard. You have to really work hard, by the way. Coursework is not easy. It'll be just 3 courses, but they will take your entire life on. Like, trust me that when I say this, it is very hard. No one's going to spoon feed you. The professors expect you to know a lot of things because you've already done your bachelor's. And unfortunately, I don't think we are equipped for it. It's very sad to say. And you are competing with people who are really smart, and somehow you kind of stand nowhere. And people who have this hope that nay, I'll do really well and get TARA, it's not going to happen because usually schools give TA and RA positions to PhD students for funding. So you have to completely leave that hope. If you get it, good. If you don't come with the expectation that you're going to get it. If you guys have any specific questions, you can just unmute yourself and ask me.
Yes. So while you were talking, there were a few questions that were sent in for the, application process itself as to the GRE exam. First of all, they were
Okay.
asking about the score and the preparation part of it, how to handle the preparation for the exam along with the final year placement part. So that's what they've been asking.
Okay, guys. GRE prep will really help you with the exam for your interviews because all companies, as far as I know, take aptitude tests. And if you've been doing GRE prep, your aptitude will be really good. So yeah, GRE prep is a good way to do well on those aptitude tests. Second thing, my GRE score is really bad, guys. I got a 306, but I managed to get into a good university because I had good grades and I had second thing that I had was I had a lot of experience in and around my college, and I did a lot of I did MSS, and I used to do a lot of extracurriculars. And when you come abroad, that kind of stuff really you can leverage on that a lot because they don't look at you. They just don't look at your grades. They look at your overall profile. And so yeah, I would say that you guys have a major advantage that you're an MSP and you guys are doing these sessions and stuff. And if you always take part in clubs, those kind of things look really good on your resume.
Okay, so we'll be putting that forward to students who sort of are
Also,
apprehensive.
about sorry, there's
Yes.
one more point I want to add. When you apply for colleges, don't go overboard and apply like 19, 20 colleges. There's no need for that. Stick to, I would say a good amount is 7 to 8. On the safe side, 10. Don't do anything more than that because each application costs you money, and it costs you about 7 to 10,000 to apply to each university, I would say. And so when you do the when you're doing your a second thing is when you're doing your SOPs, guys, you have to personalize your SOP for every application. Make a general one, but for every application that you do, you have to personalize it and explain to you why you want to go to that college. That's really important because if you send them a general SOP, they'll know it straight away. Um, Second thing is, oh, for people who want to consider taking consultancies and stuff, that's a waste of money. I did not take any consultancies, nor do I know anyone in my family who has. So I think they're a complete waste of money. Just it application is quite straightforward. You have to do an SOP. You have to send in your scores, and then you have to pay an application fee. You have to do your SOP. They ask you a few questions and stuff. It's very straightforward. Nothing too daunting. Nothing to be worried about. So yeah, don't waste your money in consultancies. Please review your SOP by as many people as you can because the more the opinions, the better it is, and you should always have your SOP read by like a bunch of people so that you can incorporate their feedback and work on your SOP for at least 3 months. At least 3 months. Make I must have made about 25, 30 drafts. That that's easily that it will easily be that much. And yeah, for the application itself, um, it's not to and you make a list of colleges that you want. Make sure you put two safe, some mid-range, and 2 to 3 ambitious colleges. So you can have your dream colleges, apply to those. Then you can have a few mediocre range colleges where you think you'll get in, and one or two safe colleges where you're sure that no matter what, like even if I don't get into these colleges, I'll get into this one. It's always better to be safe than sorry, because otherwise, if you apply to all ambitious colleges and you don't get a call back from any of them, you basically have lost out on a year.
So I have a
So
question
yeah.
here. How do you choose those safe colleges? Like, how do you know that, okay, I'm surely going to get into these colleges? How do you decide that?
Usually what I would do, there's an app, I think, um, I don't remember what it's called. It used to be like yellow. I don't remember what it was. I think there are a lot of apps which talk about like profiles that got accepted at colleges, and you see a general trend in their GRE scores and their GPAs and those kind of things. And you should talk to a lot of, like, see if you know anyone who got into that school. They usually have a they have a big picture about what kind of people get in, and they can tell you if you can get in or not. So that's one way. I think there are a lot of Facebook groups for that. I Yeah, there are a lot of Facebook groups for that. People post their profiles and say, "Do you think I can get into this college or not?" And a lot of people from those colleges, they tell you whether you can or you cannot. It's not a. There are a lot of cases where I know someone in my own circle who got a 306 and got into UT Austin. That's unheard of, but it happens. So I would not discourage you from applying to colleges, ambitious colleges, even if you have a low GRE score. Your overall profile can get you in. You don't know.
Yeah, I have a friend
So
who got into Carnegie Mellon University with a GRE score of 310. So
yeah,
that's great as well, right?
yeah. I got 306 and I am in US. All my friends, I have heard nobody tell me that they have a score that's close to mine. They're all in the range of 315 to 320.
Oh.
So what we need to not focus just on one thing, try to make our entire profile better
Mm-hmm.
rather than just focusing on one, which people tend to
Yeah,
do. At the end they just try to
yeah.
scramble. So instead of that, we need to focus on
Mhm.
keeping the entire profile really well.
So do you have
Okay, GRE score is very important if your grades are not well. If you didn't do well in your college, then your GRE score really helps you there
what
what
to
what
cover for that.
as a good grade point?
Yeah, I was going to ask the
Um,
same question.
okay, guys. I don't know about the CGPS system. You guys have a completely different grading criteria thing, but I think anything about 8.5 is really good.
Okay.
And would could do you have any suggestions as to how to structure the SOP, like specifically, because people say that that's like one of the most important criteria of choosing, right? So if there are any tips
Yeah,
that
that
us,
is.
yeah.
Your essay needs to be really, really good, really personal. It should talk about your own experiences. How I structured mine was I started off with what motivated me to choose this field. Um, what I have. Okay, guys. Also, one more thing in your SOP. Don't say. Don't keep saying I like this. I want to do this. I did. I aspire to do this and stuff. Don't. Just say, um, I had an interest and this is what I did about it. They want to see what you did about having that interest. Don't just say, I was born to code. No, they don't like all that. What they want to hear is, okay, you, how did you get into this field? What all did you do? How have you, how have whatever you've done, how has it affected the community? How have you helped others? And at the end, what do you aspire to do in the future? That's how I structured it. And yeah, if any one of you wants to read my SOP or wants a copy of it, I'll be more than happy for you to go through it if you want.
Sure, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, it's uh at least for me, I learn better from example rather than somebody teaching me. I see something and I'm like, okay, so this is how you go about it. So I think that would be a really great idea, and we could share it with anybody who's interested to go through as well.
Sure, that's not an issue. See, guys, this is not like me trying to teach you guys anything. I'm just giving you insights on my experiences so that later on in life, when you have to go through those choices, you will be in a more informed place than I was, because I really had nobody to look up to and ask them, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I prepare? When do I do this? Nobody was there to tell me that. Fortunately enough, somehow I managed to do it. But yeah, it's hard. It's really scary because um because we're stuck in this pandemic, more than 70% of my class did not get an internship, and more than 70% of my class right now does not have a job. And I belong to a relatively good university. I have no idea how people from lower universities are coping or struck. Like, I don't know how they're managing, because companies have this thing where they'll filter you out based on your university. It's very unfortunate, but they do that because they're like, okay, unless this guy is exceptionally good, he's gone to a mediocre university, maybe let him work himself up to come to our company. So that becomes really hard for internationals, because that's okay for people who live here because they can work in startups and they can work themselves up. But for us, we need to get into good companies because we need them to sponsor our visa. And those startups don't sponsor H1B. So it's a one shot. You have to come here. You have to be the best you can so that they take you in. That's how
I
it is.
think I think what you've told us till now is a little bit more important and relevant than the technical aspect of going to, choosing the career path and going about it. Because for us students, uh, they present a very romanticized idea of going abroad and struggling in the US. We don't really have a very clear idea of as to what actually happens. So this was really important for us to hear, to know what goes on behind the scenes, rather than only the success stories that you see on the internet where they paint it so beautifully and you're just like, I want that. But getting there is like a blank space where no one's filling that for you. So listening to
No,
that
it's so
was
hard.
really nice.
It is absolutely, absolutely hard. If you think getting a job in India is hard, it's 300 times harder in the US. Because you can't apply to all companies. You cannot, because you are restricted by the number of companies um that sponsor H1B. I'll tell you a very nice incident. So last year in our career fair, Facebook had come. And the thing is, with Facebook, they sponsor H1B. But when they came to our career fair, they said we don't sponsor H1B. So they choose certain colleges, and only from those colleges they'll sponsor H1B. So my college was not on their list of colleges that they would like to sponsor the students. It's very unfortunate that in these career fairs you will have a bunch of companies, like 5 companies or so, that will sponsor your visa, compared to like the 100, 200 companies that come. You'll have 5 or 6 that will sponsor you. It's very you won't know it till you come here. And once you come here, it's too late. So make sure you guys know that it's not easy at all. There are people who, including my own roommate, who got resigned because of COVID. By the way, she had an internship. They resigned it because they said, "Sorry, we cannot. We gave you an offer, but we're going back on it because at this point we don't want any interns." It's very unpredictable, and she went through a lot of financial issues because of that, because she was counting on that, and that didn't happen. So yeah, things can change, and it's not very rosy. It is absolutely very, very, very hard. It is a big struggle, big. At this point, if I would have known this, I would just accept the offer and stay back in India. Like, oh my God, the things that I have gone through. I wonder if that's even worth it. But yeah, I've definitely grown as a person. I think I've become more independent now. And if you get in, the pay is really worth it, because the difference in pay in India and the US is enormous. Enormous. They severely underpay Indians. And so, yeah, once you've made it, it's a very rosy picture. But if you don't make it, then, because I'm telling you, two people from my batch left, they gave up and they went back. They were like, I don't think we can do it. They went back. There are a lot of people, they're just not in my own circle. They're both from MJ. Two of them left and went back in the middle of their masters. They didn't even finish it. They were like, I don't think we can, this is not for us. It's hard. It's very hard. I don't want you guys to think that nahi kar lenge, mehnat kar lenge and all that. No, it doesn't work.
Yeah, actually, regarding that very point, a few questions were there by the audience where they were asking
Mm-hmm.
which one would be better, would it, masters or going for an internship? And you were at a point where you had to choose from two. And
Masters or going for an internship?
No, I think she
Are
meant job. She meant taking the placement. I think that's what she
yeah,
meant.
yeah.
okay. Depends on your company, guys. Really depends on your company. I would say no matter what job you do in India, unless you get like placed in Microsoft with like 40, 42 lakhs or something, then that's something I would take. Um, but if if money is important to you, then yeah, you'll get paid a lot more here. You'll be making a lot more here than you would be in India. But if money is not important and you just want to be with your family and you want it to be comfortable, then yeah, definitely go. There's nothing wrong with taking a job in India. So I would definitely encourage that. But that's your priority. Whatever you think is best for you.
Mm. That does make sense. Depends on each
Mm-hmm.
individual's needs, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. Like of course, like for me, I think my family is really important. So at some point in my life, I would want to live ideally with somewhere close to my parents and stuff. So for me, that's a personal choice. And so that's why I think I would have made an informed decision had I known better. But I'm not being ungrateful for what I have at this point. So yeah, hopefully, inshallah, I will at some point try to either get my parents here or see if we can meet at middle ground or something. I don't know. We'll see. Or whoever I get married to somehow has some way to get my parents here or something like that. It's just, I think it's very personal. it's a choice that you have to make.
Absolutely. I think unless and until all of us have this dream or an idea that we are working towards, it won't be easy. So
Mm.
that is very important to have something that we're working towards.
I called my dad in the middle of my master's. I think after my first test where I had done really badly, and by the way, so I called my dad and I was like, I don't want to do this, Papa. I just don't want to do this. I don't know why I came here. मेरे से नहीं होता. And I told him this, and he was like, it's okay, बेटा, वापस आ जा. Uh, तुम्हारी खुशी से बढ़ के कुछ भी नहीं. But then I was like, man, my father spent his entire life savings on me, and he's just like, तुम्हारी खुशी से बढ़ के कुछ भी नहीं. And I was like, no, I owe this to him. Like, I'm gonna do it. It's okay. Even if it's the end of the world, I will do it. And that really struck out to be as a driving force.
That's really nice to hear. I wish that everybody who does have similar dreams gets the support that you have. That's really nice, actually. Okay, so
What
we've
did you
got to,
Okay, sorry.
yeah, so we've got to,
So I want to hear what your dreams and ambitions are. Like, come on, guys.
well, I think that they sort of are a little bit similar to yours. That's why I've been so interested in talking to you over the phone call as well. And I've been waiting for this session so I could ask you all the questions, because these questions are personally even mine, not just from the audience, but also that I had. And a lot of people that I know, my friends, have similar dreams. And like I've said before, for now, it seems very ideal to us, but we need to look at the reality as well. So that's been really eye opening for us.
Yeah, there's a comment on there's a message that says, I was in a delusional idea that companies are looking for CS undergrads everywhere, but the competition
So,
is so much here in India that people go for masters as like an escape. But like after listening to
yeah.
you, I think everyone has had that reality check that it's not an escape really.
No, it's actually putting you in a worse situation because here it's like do or die. Because you're on a tick. When you're here, you're on a timer basically. Because you have to get a job by the end of your graduation period. If you don't manage to get that, your OPT starts ticking. Within 90 days, you have to leave the country. So not only not only is it already difficult, but you're also on a timer to do it.
And I
So
think
that's
COVID
an
makes it much
incredible.
more harder, right? For
It
right.
is. It is. It is because the expectations from you will be higher since you're a master's graduate. So they'll be like, oh, these people might be like really good. So yeah, like he went on and he asked me like a graph question, like it's just like an ABC question for me. I'm like, yeah, okay. Do you guys have
Uh,
any other questions?
yeah, but these are I
Um,
think we've
Hello, Rita. How are you? I mean, I am seeing you like after 2 years or so. I am your junior, and I saw
Mm-hmm.
I attended the first MSS workshop, which was on artificial intelligence, and I remember you and Aisha Baji were doing this,
Mm-hmm.
and it was so nice. And I was like, one day I want to be like this, and I want to work because I remember first year at that time. Um, so, like, thank you for sharing your experience with us. It's really nice to know that this is really difficult and it's not a piece of cake. Um, I really wanted to know how was it the first day you went to your college and how was the experience like over there? Like,
Oh my god, that is so overrated, by the way. Okay, honestly, when I just landed, I had an aunt pick me up from my. So fortunately, I had an aunt who lived in Florida, but she lived 4 hours away from me. But because I was coming for the first time, she picked me up from the airport and she dropped me to my college. You won't believe it, but at Walmart, I sat down and cried for 1 hour because I was like, oh my God, I have to do my own groceries. So my mom's not going to get the food for me. And I was like, so for me, my reality check had not come. Like my brain was not registering that I had left for me. So when I first started doing everything, I just repelled everything. I was like, why am I here? I don't want to do this. I don't know why I'm here. I hate all these people. I have to live with them. No, so the first day I went to college, I got to meet a bunch of people, and it was it was a nice experience. It was My college is massive. It's 2,000 acres. So
Which,
it's nothing.
oh,
Sorry,
which college
go
did you go
ahead.
to?
I go to University of Florida.
Oh,
It's
okay.
in a small town called Gainesville. So the entire town is my university basically. And so yeah, it's a 2,000 acre university. So you have no idea. So the most annoying thing for me was my class was in one building. My other class, which was 15 minutes away, like 15 minutes apart, was in another class. But for me to walk from this class to this class, it would take me 25 minutes. So
Oh,
for me, the first year I was just running around everywhere. It was just really bad.
oh.
Um, yeah,
And
I kind of was like, why can't everything just happen in one class? No, there's no concept. So here you have to go to each of these classes. It's not like you'll be assigned a class and the professor will come and teach you. No, it doesn't work like that. The professors have their own lecture halls, and so you have to go to that lecture hall.
I think that's really nice.
Yeah.
Because we like in India, it's all being, so easy. And I think the undergrad over there is also really hard.
It is.
I have a cousin who lives there, and she's doing the same computer science that I am doing, but that's really difficult for her because she has to like get all those fees. Okay. I wanted to know, like, how about the difference in teaching? Are they teaching? No, they won't
Oh
be
yeah.
teaching.
The
Okay.
teachers are absolutely fantastic. Like they're really good. They know what they're teaching, and they take a lot of effort to explain things to you. Like they go out of their way to teach you. So I think the teachers are doing a really good job. So I think this is the same for all universities. Teachers are really, really good. You don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
And usually they host office hours, you have TAs. Okay, guys, also, please do not feel shy to go and ask the TA questions. That is his job. If you ever go to masters, go and harass the TA till you understand the concept because that's his job. If you don't understand the concept, this is something my brother told me. Otherwise I wouldn't know. So yeah, I'm just sharing this small piece of information with you guys.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
everyone else, feel free to unmute yourself and ask me anything that you want to. It's fine.
I can I ask a question, Rida?
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
Uh,
Sorry.
so yeah, so I have a question. When students they opt for masters before actually doing the job. So let's say you're in the US and you have two options. Either you can directly apply for a job or you can go for your masters. So which one, with regard to the compensation or the financial side, is better?
of course, working here will give you a lot more. Okay, so I'll give you an easy example. Um, in India, when you start off as a fresher, you get about at the most what 15, 16, 17, let's say 25 lakhs per annum. When you start off as an engineer in the US, This is start basic. You get about $100,000. So $100,000. I don't want to convert it, but is approximately about 70.
Then I mean, my question was for the US, not India. Like in the US.
Oh, okay. In the US, sorry, wait, I didn't get your question.
Okay, so like, let's say a person is in the US, he has two options: either go directly for a job or do MS and then go for a job.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case,
See, for us, the reason why we have to do MS is because we don't have status in the US. So you need a visa. So for that visa, you go through the MS process because the MS allows you to have something called OPT, and then eventually you can have that converted to H1B. If you already have that status in the US where you don't need an H1B, if you have a green card or if you're a citizen, there's no need for a master's. You can just directly go for a job. I would much rather just go for a job because you learn at the job. There's nothing that master's teaches you that your job requires. They'll just teach you everything you need to know at your job.
okay, thank you. That was my question.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about anybody else? Who's having a
Yeah,
good
Rida
time?
Didi.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm Sohaib here.
yes.
Yeah, like always, it has been a pleasure listening to you and even talking to you. But I think you have missed something that you've always said us whenever we sat down for a talk about career, especially
Yes.
specialization, ML, AI, quantum
Oh,
computing, very glossy terms. So how should someone choose their specialization?
okay, guys. I will tell you this honestly. Do not restrict yourself. It's already very hard to find jobs here. The second you say, okay, I will do data science or I will do ML or masters in ML or I'll do masters in AI and all, you have restricted your job. You have actually cut down your jobs by half. Actually, even probably cut it down by three-fourths. Because how many data science engineers are there? Like, they don't need that many. But if you keep yourself as a general software engineer, when you do courses, select your courses wisely. Like I majored, so I have a major in like I have done every course there is, like everything I need to know in every field. At this point, if I want to turn my resume into something close to a data science engineer, I will. I can. And then I will, when I want to tweak it, I will change it to for a job that's more machine learning based. I will change my resume to be more machine learning based. You can do anything if you keep yourself generalized. But the second you restrict yourself, those software engineers' jobs have gone off your list because now you're a data scientist. So you can only apply for data science jobs. You realize what you've done. You've actually left out all these other jobs just because you said you want to get into data science. You can always, once you get into a company, companies here are very flexible with your position. Within a year, you can change your department. You can change your project. You can move towards what interests you. That's something that I want you guys to keep into perspective. If you think, you know, if you think that this is your real interest and all of that, take a minor in that. Major in computer science, minor in artificial intelligence or data science, for example. That way you have best of both worlds. You've done enough coursework to get you through to that job. I would say that's the best way. That's something that I learned that I did. So this is something I actually asked a few seniors about, and they told me this, and now I'm telling you guys this. I know it's very glossy, and it's a very it's sometimes you're like, no, I know I'll be really good at this, and I know no one's questioning you. Just don't restrict your jobs. because it's really hard here to get into a good company. And you need to get into a good company for them to apply for H1B.
Yeah, exactly. And this even sounds logical because when you can have the superset, why do you especially want to restrict yourself to a subset of things? And secondly, Ridha Vidhi, for everything you have said,
Mm-hmm.
I think the villain would apply to a very good, so peaceful. But right now, I have a lot of friends, especially in my batch, at the point where they have to take decisions, and especially with the ongoing situations, they have second and third thoughts. So, what exactly do you think situation is pushing us towards? So they are going for jobs and they are again thinking, shall will we be able to manage in this situation, or should we go after a year, getting placed for maybe 2 years? How should it happen? Or should we go for spring or should we go for fall? So what would you advise all of us?
Okay, I would advise always come in fall. Do not come in spring. It gives you a very big disadvantage if you come in spring, is because there's a law in the US where if you come during fall, you will have 2 semesters here in the US before you do your internship. There's a compulsion that you have to finish 2 semesters before you can apply before you can do a summer internship. If you come in spring, you will have only 1 semester before you can do your internship. And so your summer is wasted. Do not do that. Always choose fall. And also fall has a bigger intake. So you have a bigger chance of actually even getting in. So I would advise you to go for fall. Secondly, I think you asked about choosing a company there or coming to the US. Is that what you asked me, Sohaib?
No, not exactly. Given the
Mm-hmm.
current situation, I mean, some the last I
Oh,
think the last intake, many people haven't applied, and we have heard about people being deboarded. I mean, everything is online right now. So because classes are online, they've been asked to leave, and especially there are being a lot of administrative changes. Election is on the head as well. So people are confused because of all of these external circumstances, which are not in our control. Should we delay? Should we go in fall? Or should we just go after a year? So what do you think? Should they just, as you said, continue with masters
mm,
right after they complete BE, or because of the circumstances, should they have something, or does it make no difference?
see, honestly, um, you know what Trump passed? Trump passed a law recently saying the minimum wage for, previously the minimum wage for an H1B applicant was $75,000 a year. This was basic, and that's why companies always offered a software engineer or any position, any international position more than $75,000 so that they can apply for the H1B. However, now Trump passed a law where he's doubled that amount. So a company needs to pay you $150,000 a year to even apply for your H1B. That's something he did to get rid of international students because a lot of companies will not pay you that much money just to take you in. We're not that important. Come on. They'll be like, okay, fine, we'll just find an alternative or we'll just make another branch in India and just like outsource everything. They'll do that. So that restricts our jobs. Because of COVID, there have been a lot of restrictions, and personally, I have been affected by that because, um, like who is it affecting? People who are here, basically. Um, right now, we're hoping that Joe Biden comes, but we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. I get your concern about the whole thing with like Trump actually making it really hard, and so whether you should come or not. The thing is, the longer you wait, the harder it will get. It's not going to get easier. So that's something. I tell my own brother because he went back after his undergrad to open a startup in India, and my parents just think it's better off that he does masters and settles down out here. And so this is something that we constantly hear, that the longer you wait, the harder it will get because the more rules will change. And that's a general rule of thumb. The longer you wait, it will get harder because it's not like he's going to make it easier over time. That's not going to happen. So, yeah, it's a struggle. I get it. Don't come with any expectations. I think that would be the best approach. Don't come with the hope that life is going to be very easy. Don't come with the hope that, oh, I'm going to settle down here. Because honestly in the US, it's very, 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 very hard. Because the line for the green card is now, I think, sitting at 20 years. They're still processing 2009. It's 2020. So yeah, I guess the longer you wait, the harder it will get. That's the only advice I would give you. I know circumstances are bad, but make the most of it. A lot of people are deferring admissions and stuff. At this point, universities are easily taking applications. They don't even have GRE requirements. Why don't you guys make the most of it? I think it's the best time actually to apply because not a lot of people want to apply, and so you have less competition.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense as well. And I think the need for making an informed decision is a bigger requirement than any other time, especially for
Also,
people passing out this year.
guys, there's this thing called deferring. In case you feel like you don't want to go now and you're not ready and stuff, you can defer your admission by an entire year. Sometimes 6 months, sometimes a year. I don't know. Other Every college has its own deferring period, but you can definitely defer it for at least 1 or 2 years. So there's no such issue. Even if you get it, you have a confirmed seat in that university for an entire year. So I think that's a very good advantage that you can do by securing a seat when there's no competition. Because it's not just us Indians applying, right? There's there are Chinese people, there are Koreans, there are people from UAE, and people all around the world apply to do masters here. And so, considering the circumstances are so difficult and uncertain, a lot of these people are not applying. So make the most of the situation. You might actually even get into really good universities. I would definitely I would really leverage this time.
Yeah, the deferring thing, I think I've heard it for the first time, and I think this will be something to look into.
Hmm. Definitely look into that. Even if you think it's uncertain, just apply right now and defer it to fall.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Actually, I
Riya
think
Didi, thank
fall
you very much. I
application.
think that
Yeah.
is from my side. If anyone else have, they
Mhm.
can continue.
Yeah. Does anyone else have questions?
I
How's
have another
the
question.
hmm
Do they ask system design questions to freshers?
They don't ask system design questions to freshers. They don't do that. If you have work experience, then they'll ask you system design questions.
So the questions
Uh,
are all DS algo. That's it. Just DS algorithms. That's all. Is that how
Sorry,
they're going to be? Algorithms,
sorry, I didn't
data
get it.
structures.
Yeah,
That's it.
data structures,
Okay.
and algorithms. Yeah, basically just that. They'll see how confident you are, um, how optimized your code is. By the way, that's very, very, very important. your code has to be very, very efficient. They will also ask you to give the time complexity for your own code. So you should definitely know how to do that. Um, Make sure that you're using strategies which are very efficient. They might even ask you like trick questions in between, like if you're using a loop, they'll ask you why didn't you do a recursion or something. So something like that. If you do a recursion, they'll ask you why didn't you do an iteration? Things like that. By the way, iteration is a lot more faster than recursion, unlike uh, like the things that they teach you in undergrad.
Recursion, because of the recursion stack.
Recursion is slow because of the stack, yes.
So you also mentioned that in an interview you didn't actually solve the problem, but they uh, gave you an offer. So
Oh
that's kind
no,
of
I
hard to
solved the
comprehend.
problem. Oh no, I solved the problem. I don't know how you got that. I said they didn't teach you that in undergrad. I obviously prepared for my interview and I solved the question. That's how they gave me the job.
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess I heard.
No, that's okay. It's probably my mistake. I should have mentioned that. If you don't solve the question, you're not getting the job. Like, there's no way.
So in all of this heavy coursework and all that you had, how did you find time to practice all of the data structures, algorithms, and all of the coding part of it, or is it like a part of the
Course.
work as well?
So I took this course called AOA, Analysis of Algorithms. That was a very, very good course. If you guys have that in your uni, definitely I would recommend you to take that. That will really help you with your interview prep, because these people they actually change the way you think when you take analysis of algorithms, because they help you analyze which algorithm suits for which um, problem, and that's the one that I took in my first semester, and so that really helped me with my interview.
Oh, okay.
I would definitely recommend that. Do take that in your first semesters, because then you, as soon, okay guys, also if you're coming to the US, apply for an internship for Amazon even before you leave India, because the line is that big. Yeah, as soon as they open. I think they open somewhere in July or August. Apply and come, or else there's no callback unless you apply and come. This is something I didn't know, and thankfully it didn't affect me, because I got Salesforce quite early on. I think I got an offer in November, and I was one of the first people in my batch to get an offer. So yeah, it didn't affect me that much. But a lot of people who, so here, if you apply to a company, you don't get a call back, except Amazon. Amazon is the only company that calls you back if you just directly apply to them. And Amazon interviews are not easy to crack. They're hard to crack. Get very good with your linked list, data structures, all your data structures, especially linked list and circular. What is that thing called? Circular. I'm forgetting the word.
Circular queue.
Yeah, circular. Get very, very, very good with those things, because they ask you that in every interview. DFS, BFS. You have to be very sharp with that. Any other questions, guys?
There's one question in the audience. It says, what is the best time to start GRE prep?
Ideally, I would give my GRE prep 6 months. 6 months is a good time because you can really improve your English in 6 months. You will also not. It won't be a very rushed preparation. I didn't do that, so I would recommend you guys to at least start 6-7 months before. And it's okay if you don't do well in your first attempt. At least give yourself enough time that you can make 2 or 3 attempts. I just made one attempt and whatever. I didn't have time because I started really late. Ideally, you should be starting your GRE prep in third year, second semester, if you're planning to leave in fourth year.
So do companies ask the number of attempts you've given?
No, nobody asks you that. Because here a lot of people take SATs, right? So SATs, my own cousin gave like 5 attempts. It doesn't matter. Your highest score will be counted. There's no such thing. But the only thing is, GRE is expensive to give. I think it's about $200. So I think this would be about 14,000, I think, per attempt. Sorry,
Okay.
Rita?
So, no.
Hmm.
I was just letting you finish talk, but I think we've covered most of it, and the other questions have been recurring. So you've answered all of our doubts, and this was supposed to be for an hour, but it's almost close to 2 now. So thank you so much for the time that you've invested here,
Uh-huh.
and I'm sure.
Hello.
Uh, okay.
Hello. Yeah, Rida, I have some questions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, Rida, Didi, now, as you said, US universities are not considering GRE. So, what basis are they taking in the students
Your GPA,
based on the
your
SOP
overall
and
profile,
academic?
your
O-
SOP, your recommendation letters, your overall profile, except your GRE, your grades will count now. So
Okay,
yeah,
so
it's time.
another thing, what all things should we include in our SOP? Like, what are the main things which you thought would be better to put
And
in SOP?
SOP is what you want to tell them about yourself. It's a statement of purpose. What is the purpose of your master's? And you really, in that essay, have to convince them with all your ambitions, your work, everything together. You have to convince them that you really want this uh, opportunity. A lot of people have gone through a lot of struggles and they really write about those things. People who say that they've gone through, I'm telling you, people who say they've gone through drug addiction or abusive parents and things like that, and uh, how they've overcome that, and they've really led their life to be at the place that they are, and now they aspire to be this. There are a lot of people who say that I'm a first gen. If it's true, do not lie on your recipe. A lot of people tell you, like, a lot of people have stories. They want your story, basically. A lot of people leverage on the fact that sometimes they are probably the first generation that's going abroad to get an education, and they really like that. They're like, oh, we're helping out people who really need it and stuff. So there are a lot of things. Honestly, I would not play victim, but do tell them about your life and your struggles and how you've overcome them, and why you want to be, why you want to do masters, and what will you get out of that. Your passion for computer science, and what have you done to show it. That's very important. It's just not about feeling like you like this. You can't be like, oh, I love coding. So no, you have to show how you love coding. I love coding, and so I did this. Give a statement, justify what you did about it. I feel passionate about helping girls in technology, and so I made Girls Code. Or I I like doing this. Boys can also leverage these kind of events, and saying that in our college girls are not encouraged, and so we made sure that girls really had an upper hand in our college, and we this is what we did. You don't just say that I love this. What did you do about it? That's basically what they want to hear. If you talk about your projects, also do it passionately. Because if you say, okay, I did this project because I was facing this issue, so I solved this, something like that.
Yeah, sure, got it.
Through this project, I learned these things, and so it's leading me to want to apply for this uh, course and stuff, things like that.
So can I
Okay.
ask what are the things which you included from in your SOP? Like you did
Okay.
many of things, right?
Yeah.
So if you remember what you had in your SOP, can you please give us an
I
insight?
I will send you my resume. Oh, sorry, my SOP, and I will tell you. But the thing is, how I thought about it is, I spoke about how I got interested in computer science, how a teach. So I had a flow of events where I said a teacher is a very important part because she teaches you a lot of things, and so going from there, um, I learned I spoke about my experiences, and then I spoke about how I like teaching, and that led me to like I like sharing things, and I like to teach everyone whatever I know, and so that led me to make MSS, and then from there, so there's something. So I used to volunteer in a government school to teach underprivileged kids because I know that they don't have the opportunities that we do. And so that's something I spoke about. And I said, I understand that not everyone and not every person in this world has same opportunities that I've had. So it's my internal responsibility to make sure that I can do my bit in this place. And so I taught them I spoke about that, and I showed them how someone taught me and I taught someone, and um, I aspire to keep doing that, and that's why learning for me is very important because I believe in making a platform for those people who don't have that opportunity. Something on those lines. That was the basic structure of my SOP. So so uh, it was around teaching, and so it showed a circle of me teaching people. So that's something that I took into my personal SOP, but some things could be different for you guys. You can take a different route to it. Think about how you can personalize this, what's important to you. Really think about this. That's why I said take at least 3 months to write your SOP because you have to understand your structure and you have to convey that effectively. I don't know if that was helpful. But yeah, in between, I spoke about my projects and things like that. I'll send you my SOP. You guys can go through them. If you see the difference between my first draft and my last draft, you'll be like, what the hell is this? It was so bad, my first draft. It's always the first draft is really bad, by the way. So you keep working on it, you cut things out, and take a general. Every school has a different limit on how many words they want you to write. Usually stick to one page. I think it's easy for you to add or subtract things to it.
Vedadi, can I ask you one thing? Can I have your number, please? Because I'm confused in what should I do if I become a software engineer. But now I'm doing in BTech second year, so I'm confused what to do and what not to do. So can I have your contact number, please?
Yeah, sure. Actually, you can take it from Rita and Sohaib. I think they have.
Yeah,
You can ask
I'll
her.
share anything that is required for the attendees,
Mhm.
as even the SOP. When you do send it, I will share it with the attendees. So you guys need not worry about that also.
Oh, I think someone asked me a question, Zubair. What was your skill set after leaving MJ? I mean, and what part were you confident? Honestly, Zubair, engineering didn't teach me anything that I didn't know already. It's a very sad truth, but yeah, because I went school. I did my schooling was from an ICSE school, and so we were taught computer science early on in life. So when I was doing engineering, they didn't teach me anything I didn't already know. So yeah, engineering was kind of a waste for me. But yeah, when I did masters, that really put an additional that really added a lot of things to my thing. The only things that I think I gained from undergrad was projects that I did and a lot of community um, insights, I would say. So, what were my skill sets? Um, what exactly do you mean by skill sets? I was good with my data structures. I was good with my algorithms. Um, I had a decent knowledge in SQL. I had a database from MJ. Yeah, I think what else did it teach you? There's nothing much to teach you, honestly. So there's like everything else is theoretical. I learned a little bit from that class. I can't remember its name. Sorry guys, I'm really like my memory is really weak. Uh, what's it called? It's that thing. It's that subject where they teach you about finite state machines and stuff. I think it's logical something something. I don't remember the name. That's one of the. That's one of. Oh, that's a very interesting course. Um, yeah. Apart from that, yeah, I wish I learned more, but um, I already had a very strong base because of my background. So engineering just seemed like a revision of the same things. Oh yeah, ALC, automated. Yeah, automator. Yeah. Any more questions, guys? Go ahead, feel free to ask me anything. What's my favorite dish? All of those things. Anything is fine.
Hello, Rida.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, hi. Yeah,
Hi.
hi. First of all, massive
Mm-hmm.
respect from my side. You're a huge inspiration after listening to your story. Uh, s- so now moving on to my question. My question is that I'm thinking of applying for masters in this fall. So, what do you think is the earliest day should I apply for the deadline? Application? Should I send my application to the universities of my choice?
The earlier you send your application, the better your chance is to get a scholarship because a lot of universities give partial scholarships. Not just it might not be a big amount, but they do consider your application. If you send it early on, you have a better chance of getting a scholarship, in my
Uh,
opinion.
how do we get to know that university is offering us a scholarship or not? Because I heard
You
that
don't know.
Yeah, that's.
You
I
don't.
heard UTD is not offering us any scholarship like for the foreign students.
My university offered me a scholarship for 5,000, which is not much, but yeah, it did make a difference. 5,000, if you see in Indian rupees, is quite a big amount.
So, like, when did you apply for the fall admission, or what?
All
Like,
admission.
yeah, at around what time did you apply for the fall applications?
So you should ideally have all your applications done before November 15th or so. You should aim to finish all your applications by November mid at the most.
By application, you mean sending all the details to the universities?
Yes,
Okay.
your SPP, everything should be done by November 15th.
Uh,
I think there's a deadline for every university. Don't wait for the deadline.
Sure. And
Yeah.
I heard something about transcripts, getting a transcript from OU to submitting to the universities. Like how does that work?
You have to apply for transcripts online, and I think they'll give you a date. I think they give you a date, and you have to go and pick it up. It's fairly straightforward.
So like
But
how
it
many?
takes some month.
Okay, how many transcripts should we have for each university? Like how many should we make a
Depends
copy?
on how many are you planning to apply to?
I was thinking of 5.
5. So take
Is
5
that
for
a good number, 5? How many did you apply for?
I would not advise 5. 5 is too less. But yeah, I would say 7 should be a good amount. But if you're confident with 5, I think that's good enough, because I applied to 5, and that's a mistake I made. And I applied to all ambitious colleges. I did not consider any mediocre range. Actually, I had one or two mediocre range, and everything else was ambitious. I didn't apply to any safe college. So it worked out in my case, but I would not advise that. I was just being incredibly stupid, because I was like, if I don't get into these universities, I don't even want to go. So for me, it was something like that. But yeah, that's not something you should do if is considering masters is your only option.
Okay, sure. Okay, right now I think I'm currently running late because of I've just written my GRE. I'm waiting for my writing my TOEFL, and then I'm to go for that transcripts thing also. So I don't think so I can meet that November 15 deadline of yours. So is there something like a ED early decision 2 deadline, something like that? I heard that there are many universities offering ED 2 too.
I am not sure about that. At my time, it wasn't there. Usually, there are some colleges that let you apply up till February. So I think you can aim towards those universities. So that's an option, I guess. I think my university has a deadline in February, and I think the university I'm going to was the last university I applied to.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Is there any other question that you guys have?
There is one question. I think this can we can take this as the last question, since you're probably also like already over time. So the question is there any required coursework to be taken in undergrad that is looked upon by the universities being applied to for masters?
No. Oh, for non-CS branches applying to masters in CS, oh my God, you're going to have a tough time. CS people find it very hard to do CS courses. In masters, non-CS people, it's impossible. I know one person who is non-CS and he had no work experience and he came to do masters in CS. It is very, very, very difficult if you do not know any programming languages. We are drowning. Okay, sorry about the Hyderabad. Yeah, I heard about the Hyderabad floods and stuff. I hope you guys are all okay.
So, Rida Didi, about the transcripts, I heard we have to courier our hard copy when we are applying to the college. Is that true?
Yes,
Or it's
yes,
just fine to send a soft copy?
no. So it depends on your college. They usually require you to send your transcripts in. But that's on a later stage. That's after your application. Sometimes it
So after the
yeah they require
application, when we get the offer,
yeah
when we get the offer
yeah
from the college, then we have to
yeah
courier it, right?
yes yes.
Okay, so
Usually
we have to
before
be
that
ready with
you
at least
no
three.
no
I'm
Mm,
planning to have at least three transcripts with me so that I don't.
when you apply, they require you to have a soft copy. But when you are coming to, like, when you are accepting their offer, you have to send it in.
Okay. So we don't have to send it beforehand, like when we are applying. When we get the offer, we have to give them, right?
You should have it because they ask you for the soft copy.
Okay.
Okay, one more last question from my side. Uh, what do you think about LORs? Does the LORs help us in our application? You didn't mention about LORs in your
Yes,
session.
that's really important. Make sure whoever you're getting, so in MJ, I know how it works is you have to write the LOR and the teachers you select will send it out. LORs are very important. It's always good to have a good person recommending you. Um, See if you can get like a senior teacher or something to recommend you. Um, Also, always don't. Usually, what teachers tend to do is send you a copy of a generic LOR that they send out for all students. Don't do that. Write your own LOR and then have it sent by the teacher. Because I know a lot of people who send like all these copied LORs. They are not good.
So we need to send the LORs along with our applications, right? Like
Yes.
SOPs, LOR, and that.
Yes. It's a very straightforward process. You just have to write an SOP. You have to send in your LORs. You have to send in your transcripts. Um, yeah, about that. I think GRE scores and TOEFL scores. That's it.
Sure, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think with that, we can conclude the session for today. To be very honest, it was really insightful. Like you gave me a completely different perspective on masters. I've been watching videos and listening to people. I've spoken to so many people, but I've never listened to this version of it. So it was really
Mm-hmm.
very insightful for me as well. So yeah, I'm pretty sure all the attendees have also benefited from this session. Thank you so much for
Mm-hmm.
joining, taking and answering the questions so patiently.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
So I think with that, we can conclude.
Yeah.
So
Thank you
much.
so much. Thank
Yeah.
you guys for attending. So that's it. I hope
Yeah.
that everyone's well, and I wish you all the luck, and I hope that everything that you wish for you achieve, inshallah. And so that's it for the session, guys. I think we can all leave now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Yeah, as for me, I
Thank
think
you.
I should thank both the Ridas and Ananya as well for organizing this session. It was very wonderful. So, Ananya and Rida, very well done. And Rida Didi, thank you very much again.
No problem, guys.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure's all
Thank
mine.
you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye
But I
bye.
do
Have a good day,
want
guys.
your number. I do want your number.
You can always get it from either Rida, Sohaib, or Azhar. I think there'll be more. Yeah, I think they all have my number.
Yeah, we'll be sharing it with you. Don't worry, you can get in touch with us. So we'll share it with you.
Yeah.
I'll end the meeting
Okay.
now, guys. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye. Take care.